pencilers should have a good drawing sense and drawing ability. I mean, you really should be able to spot blacks on your own. You should know how feathering works and where to add it, and no one should have to hold your hand on line weights. I think there are inkers who can't draw particularly well, and they do a competent job. I'm not gonna down them, but I think the guys who are exceptional artists in their own right really have a big advantage. Now, the other thing you have to consider is there are going to be areas of black where he is indicated entirely black. That isn't always necessarily the way you want to go. Maybe that doesn't work with your inking technique. Maybe you want to leave a little bit of that open for the colorist to play around in. That's not a problem. As long as it looks good, don't be afraid to deviate from what the penciler's done. You know, that with that said, just be aware it's one of those situations where if you make a judgment call and you decide right, everyone's going to love you for it. If you make a judgment call and the penciler or editor does not like it, they're going to question why you've been changing things. So you have to be very fair in your assessment of your abilities. Now, a good example of adding just a little something is, as I'm making this, I'm kind of thinking the side of Spider-Man's calf here, where it's very solid black in here, flattens it just a hair. So what I'm going to do is pull out a section there that's going to show light from two directions. You're going to have light hitting here, and you're going to have a softer light hitting from here. And I will, when I hatch that direction, I'm going to round the curve of his thigh. That's going to give the colorist a little bit more leverage to play in there and to unflatten the drawing. If you don't take chances like that a lot of times in inking, you're going to horribly flatten the drawing. Because at the end of the day, sometimes things that work in pencil don't translate to ink very well, and vice versa. I think for good reference on acceptable alterations to pencils, two guys to really look into are Tim Townsend and Danny Meeke. If I've mispronounced any names, I apologize wholeheartedly. But I'm more familiar with Tim's work, but he's an absolute master of adding what's needed and eliminating what's not needed. You know, whenever in doubt, I would definitely defer to his work, because it is excellent. So now I'm going to get a smaller point pen back out here, and I'm just going to go through real quick and finish up some of that webbing. Just kind of spin it, flip it around, make sure it looks good. Add what you got to add, you know. Now that we're getting into the finished stages of Spider-Man here, you can kind of figure out what's needed and what's not needed and adjust accordingly. Alright. Now, where I was talking earlier about his leg maybe benefiting from a little extra something, what I would honestly do, I'm going to do the feathering out of the black the way that Randy's indicated. And you do that with a nice dagger stroke kind of, taper. And then I like to do a little bit of a Tim Townsend technique here and go in perpendicular to that and shoot a line through. And what that's going to do is that's going to really add a little bit of soul to that line, kind of. And based on that idea, I'm just going to follow those right through, trying to keep the curve of the line. And do the same thing on the opposite side. Now what I've succeeded in doing is creating a light source that makes that more of a three-dimensional object and bangs that out a little bit. It throws it towards you, which is, as always, and especially in Spider-Man artwork, is going to be your goal. So what I'm basically going to do is, Spider-Man here is getting towards his finished stages. I'm just going to go through, figure out where things are a little blank, add a little bit of spice to the lines. One technique I like to use, which you see in here, I like to break a solid space up with a little line down the side maybe. Creates an opportunity for a highlight possibly. It creates just maybe a little graying to the eye. It busies it up a little bit. And I think people like to see that. Now personally, when I'm doing abdominal work or the wings, for lack of a more anatomical term here, I like a more striated look, which is basically what I'm adding. I like a very tight, sinewy look. Let's see where I go here. I suppose he wouldn't be Spider-Man without his super cool Spider-Man symbol. So let's go in and do that. I'm going to go back and do that with my chisel tip pen. That's much more suited to those kind of lines. And these are usually my least favorite details to do on a figure because it's very iconic. Everyone knows what the Spider-Man logo looks like. Everyone knows what it needs to be. And if you goof it up, people are going to call you out on it. And since I have not drawn a Spider-Man in years, I am very thankful that Randy is a clean penciler. So I'm just going to keep it loose for now, see what comes out. What I do know is the more structure there is in the webbing, the less people like it. So I like to go with a more spaghettied up, kind of erratic type of technique on the webbing.